Hey everybody, it's Tristan Shuffles here with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel video. Yesterday I participated in the Shadow Duelist tournament, which was the only official tournament for North America since the Challenger Cups ended back in April. And what I saw was that Snake Eyes is still the strongest deck in the room across the board. This still felt better than almost any other combo deck to play going into the event. I think that Yubel is particularly weak to hand traps unless you immediately summon Phantom of Yubel before your opponent can activate anything. And sometimes they'll even activate Max C before you do that, and you have to discard 2 cards essentially in order to make it if you have no materials in graveyard already. Instead, I played Snake Eyes, and we're all waiting for Snake Eye Ash or some other essential part of the Snake Eyes engine to be banned. But until then, I think it's important to know how best to play this deck and how best to fight against this deck. And I still was able to have some great games in the tournament, so I'm excited to share those with you all today. So let's get into the list. One thing that separates my list from others I've seen is that I'm playing 2 copies of Chicken Game. This allows you to draw 1 card at the cost of 1,000 life points, so it increases the consistency of the deck after the consistency has been hit so much by the Forbidden Unlimited list, and it always gives you a face-up card on field to send for something like Original Sinful Spoils or for Diabellstar's Effect in order to activate those cards. The Snake Eyes engine allows you to play a lot of hand traps, so we're playing 2 copies of Effect Veiler, 3 copies of Maxi, 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. This has a very similar effect to Effect Veiler, and the activation timing in this game is like the OCGs, so it gives you some more flexibility with activating this card. And your opponent probably won't be playing it, so they won't be able to use Crossout Designator to negate it, which happened to my Effect Veiler some of the time. It's also a level 3 tuner, which means you can Synchro Summon using the level 7 Kashtira monsters to bring out Baronne de Fleur. Another tuner in the deck is Jet Synchron. This has been cut from most lists in favor of the Fire Kings, but I still like having it so that this deck is able to push through interruptions because you're able to bring this back from the graveyard at the cost of a discard from the hand. And you can always bring it back into play with Snake Eye Oak. And the other cards of the Snake Eye engine are essential to the deck. The 1 Snake Eye Ash and the 2 Snake Eyes Poplar. I considered playing 3 for a little bit, but then changed my mind again because drawing this in the opening hand feels pretty bad because you really want to be searching it off of something like Bonfire or Snake Eye Ash's effect. Then we have the Kashtira monsters. The 1 Kashtira Fenrir, which can search, 2 Kashtira Unicorn, which you can play to bait out your opponent's hand traps, or search Kashtira Birth, which gives you another face-up card on field, or you could send the Kashtira Unicorn off of something like Original Sinful Spoils, and then bring it back immediately with Kashtira Birth, which allows you to extend into Apollousa on the first turn. 3 Diabellstar the Black Witch. This is the signature card of the deck, and it's very powerful, and I think everyone knows what it does already, but it's able to set a Sinful Spoils from your deck. You almost always go for Original Sinful Spoils, at least until it gets banned. But I'm also playing Sinful Spoils of Subversion. This is to counter stun decks and macro decks that will use Fossil Dyna or Kashtira Rise Heart, which completely messes up your game plan and prevents you from sending cards to the graveyard, which is the whole purpose of this deck. So you need to be playing this to counter them, even though I really missed having that 3rd Effect Veiler or something like a 2nd Ghost Mourner. Snake Eyes Flamberge Dragon, you only play 1 if it gets banished. That's just the cost of playing the deck, in my view. You don't want to draw this ever, but I saw it in the tournament, so we'll see that in the replays. Nibiru the Primal Being at 1 copy, so that you can draw it off of Maxi. this will really mess up the Snake Eyes Fire King board because they don't have so many negates. 1-for-1, I forgot this card in an earlier build of the deck, but because you have so few copies of Snake Eye Ash, in that you only have one copy, you need to be playing this. Triple Tactics Talent, this feels like the best card in the game when your opponent activates a monster effect in the main phase. If they don't, it's a total brick. So that's why I'm only playing one copy, and you never want to draw two of this thing. But it really feels good to be able to take your opponent's monster and break boards that otherwise this deck wouldn't be able to break, even at its current power level. Pressure Planet Wraithsauth, this is the Kashtira field spell, which searches the Kashtira monsters. That completes that package of cards. Divine Temple of the Snake Eye, this will generally be the target that you search off of Snake Eye Poplar. I wasn't always able to go for that line in the tournament though, so we can explore those situations later on. 2 Called by the Grave to counter hand traps, particularly Maxi. Same situation with Cross-Out Designator, which can also counter Infinite Impermanence, which we're running at 3 copies. And then there's the Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils. Only having 1 copy of this really hurt versus the Challenger Cup in April, when I had either 2 or 3 copies and felt like I could always have that recursion and this deck never ran out of gas. Whereas in this tournament, I felt like it ran out of gas. And because of the time limit in the round, sometimes I felt like I couldn't necessarily finish off my opponent, and that was a scary situation to be in. Then we have the Borreload Synchro Dragon here. I considered cutting this for Sprite Elf because that's a fire monster and it's easier to make. And it gives you that targeting protection that I've talked about before. But Borreload, having that negate is just too strong when it's able to work. And it also ties in with Jet Synchron a lot of the time. And I didn't want to not have it, even if it's very rare to get enough linked monsters in the graveyard that you're able to attach to this thing in order to use its negate effect. Rowan de Fleur, this card is still out in the game, so we might as well play it. Having that Omni negate is very important. Typhon, fix a lot of situations where maybe you've drawn a hand of complete hand trap cards and no engine. You can still use this from turn 2 onwards, essentially, and make something like an Effect Veiler less of a brick because you can still Xyz summon Typhon with it. Linkuriboh, this is essential for dodging attempts to negate your level 1 monster effects, and it keeps you alive during the battle phase. Nightmare Phoenix, this is a fire, so if you're in a tough situation where you're locked by Promethean Princess's effect, you can still summon this card. And it destroys back row floodgates, which I was worried about in the tournament. Hito the Fire Charmer, this is one of the best cards you can be playing in the mirror match, and we'll see that in the games. IP Masquerena, this lets you link summon on the opponent's turn so that you can get the extra banish off of SP Little Knight. Generally, you're summoning it from the spell and trap card zone with Snake Eyes Flying effect through the mainline combo. Dark, the Dark Charmer Gloomy. I was expecting to see a lot more Yubel. I don't think I played against Yubel a single time, so I rarely had targets for this, but at least it's a spellcaster so that you can hypothetically link climb up to Selene, and then link climb again into Access Code Talker, which can have 5,300 attack points and just finishes games, which is really what you need, especially with the time limits of a tournament. Promethean Princess. It's the best card in the extra deck. We're always going to play this until it gets banned. It special summons a fire and can bring itself back and destroy a card on your field and the opponent's field, which you can use alongside Zealantis and Salamangreat Great Raging Phoenix to clear an opponent's board and put 8,000 damage. The last card in the extra deck is Appaloosa, and this card feels great to play because it can be up to 4 negates, but it's very rare to make this these days with the Snake Eye deck after the consistency hits. So that's the list, and next we'll review some games from the tournament. So here we are with the first game of the tournament. I won the coin flip, so I'm going first, and we're up against Vanquished Soul. We're going to learn that pretty soon after summoning Castor Unicorn to start here. Unfortunately, the hand trap I bait out with that is Maxi, but we can still search for Diabellstar while we have the opportunity. And they kind of waste the Ash Blossom on the Kashtira Birth Search. Maybe they weren't sure what I was playing yet. I normal summoned Poplar to save a draw, because if I'd special bid, they would have drawn off Maxi. So I link it off for Linkuriboh and pass to ensure that I don't die on the second turn. They activate Extravagance, which makes up for the fact that they discarded that Ash Blossom, and then they have a pretty full hand. At this point, I've looked at their extra deck with a Unicorn, so I know they're on Vanquished Soul. And I bring out the Snake Eye Oak here to revive Poplar and make sure that we have all the Sinful Spoils tools for turn 3. Unicorn gets destroyed, but that's okay. They bring out the Beauregard here, and unfortunately this can start doing some effect damage, and I'm getting worried about time because of the way the tournament's structured. If I have the lower life points, I'll lose in time. Luckily, that first turn didn't take too long, and they destroy the field spell with the Caesar Valius. And they search the trap card, which is what I'm really worried about, because on turn 3 they'll be able to destroy pretty much every monster on my field and deal some effect damage. Their attack order was a little backwards here, so they don't do the maximum amount of damage, and we're able to put Poplar back in the spell and trap card zone. Now, I knew going into this turn that I needed to target the Vanquished Soul Rock, because that's the only one that couldn't swap out for a monster in the hand, since it's an extra deck monster. So they search for another burger there. And they do the reveal to destroy the Linkuriboh. That's okay, because we can send the Poplar to activate original Sinful Spoils. And we've got the Jet Synchron because I want to have the Borreload negate up to prevent the trap card from activating. I draw one more card off the Wanted, and that prompts out the trap card a little early, which is okay. Maybe they were thinking that the effect damage from the card would help them win in time. I use the triple tactics. I'm thinking about taking the Valius, but then it becomes unaffected. So I can special summon Poplar here off of Snake Eye Ash's effect, and effectively do full combo after reviving a monster while Link climbing the Gloomy there. Flamebridge comes out, and we've got the Selene Access Code Talker line happening here. And our level 1 fires come back, even without the field spell. I was running low on time once again here, so I bring back the Diabellstar. I'm panicking a little, so I bring in Masquerena. And I use the Access Code effect, and I forgot that the trap card protects all their Vanquished Soul monsters from destruction. But we have an alternate win con here where we can bring back the Flamberge and use its effect instead to move it into Spell and Trap card zone, which is not immune to, and then we have well over enough damage to close out the game here. So, feeling good after defeating Maxi in round 1. Our second game is against a 60-card Snake Eyes build. We are going second. Luckily, we draw Maxi. I launched it right away because I figured if they wanted to try and deck me out, they could. They go into the Unicorn. I figured it was bait, but I didn't realize they were on Snake Eyes yet, so I thought might as well use that Imperm while I have the chance. Unfortunately, we are going to have to play under Maxi, but it's turn 2, so we can do anything we want after activating Wanted. Kashtira Unicorn gets negated, that's okay. I was trying to go for the Appaloosa line to protect from Nibiru, the Primal Being, but that doesn't look like it's happening this game. I was able to use Snake Eye Ash, but then they used Ghost Ogre, which I really don't see on ladder ever, which was a little disruptive, but I knew I wanted to go into the Snake Eye Oak with the field spell there, and luckily was able to draw Bonfire off the top. And using Jet Synchron, I'm able to send the Flamberge to get its effect, so now I'm back to having Snake Eye Ash on the field and some flexibility there. I went for the Selene line. I thought I had a Spellcaster in the graveyard, but I didn't have enough spells, and there was one Bonfire target left, but it turned out to be okay. You're going to have to use the Bonfire after all. So, that shows what happens when you fight Maxi even in a 60-card deck. In this game, we faced off against another 60-card Snake Eyes deck, and because I had so much success activating Maxi in the draw phase against that one, I used it against this one. However, I could sense that they had something and then was pretty shocked when they passed, but I figured that if they had something like Gamma, they would have used it to negate the Maxi, but then there's the Gamma. And that's a problem because they have 2 more hand traps. I personally would have used Ash Blossom if I were them there. The opponent must have realized this too, because then they used Ash Blossom on the Snake Eye Ash, which is very unusual to see. So then I still wanted to get Poplar into rotation here. I link it off into Linkuriboh, bring it back to the Spell and Trap card zone, and I'm going to send that off the original Sinful Spoils to bring out Snake Eyes Oak and get all of the pieces on the field there. I used the Charmerhita to bring back the Ash Blossom from their side of the field, and finally we can go into Flamberge here. But I'm getting worried that they've drawn so many cards, and I figured that Nibiru was what was going to be the problem, but at least I'd have Princess in the graveyard. And then Ghost Ogre again shows up as a huge interruption. I finally used that normal summon as I was running out of time and they were drawing cards and they hadn't used Nibiru yet, and I really misplayed here with the Zealantis, because what I should have done is that I should have played Dark using the Linkuriboh and gone into Selene, even though I didn't have a spellcaster in the graveyard, because I could have linked it off to make access code, putting up 5,300 attack along with Flamberge's 3,000 attack, and that would have been game. But now it's their turn and they can pretty much do whatever they want. So this was a time in the tournament where my lack of experience in tournaments really hurt me, because I was so focused on the timer, which is the short timer, and there's also the real world time as another factor, and I thought, okay, they really have to screw this up if I'm going to win, but they absolutely don't, so I just conceded to prepare for the next round. So, although I won those first 2 games, I had a loss, which you just saw, and another loss off camera that I wasn't able to get the replay for, but luckily I am going first here. Unfortunately, I only have 1 engine card, so we really need this Bonfire to resolve, and my opponent has no hand traps. I could also sense at this point that they didn't have any hand traps left, so I felt totally confident doing the full Snake Eyes combo, going completely uninterrupted, and linking up the Flamberge into IP Masquerena, getting the Snake Eye monsters back with the Flamberge effect, summoning back the Snake Eye Ash, making sure to get Linkuriboh out of here as well, then use the Promethean Princess, and we're going to bring back Flamberge, link off the Princess so we have it in the graveyard, and we have Raging Phoenix on the field, and we set up IP Masquerena in the Spell and Trap card zone, and then we make sure we have 2 Fire level 1 monsters in the graveyard by bringing Linkuriboh back here. And the opponent starts off with Wanted, which you never want to see because that's effectively 2 cards for them. And I used Veiler here because I was hoping to bait out something like the Called By, and I was able to. And then I was able to negate Poplar with Imperm, and I really want to get Poplar off the field, so I'm trading for it here with SP Little Knight's extra banish effect. It might not even really be a trade at that point, but at least I got rid of their normal summon. And then I realized they're on the Fire King build, and they bring out the Fire King boss monster, the Garunix here, and they use Skyburn that's in the Imperm column. This is not really make or break, because I could have banished the Garunix with the SP Little Knight at some point. And I really was hoping at this point that the opponent would concede, because I had everything, including the life point advantage, but they just kept going, and they bring out the Snake Eye Ash here, which I was able to banish with SP Little Knight, and I thought they'd search for Poplar, but they get Kurikara. So I replace as many monsters on field as possible that have used their effects this turn to make sure its attack is pretty low, and then I reduce its attack to 0. I know I could have used the Nibiru here, and I really should have, but I thought, what's the worst thing they could special summon? For some reason, I thought maybe they even had to special summon a fire monster, and I was also worried with that last card in hand that they would keep playing. But now they have my IP Masquerena, so they're able to make Little Knight on my turn and banish the Flamberge, which is absolutely not what you want to see. We were running out of time, and even though I had the life point advantage, this was a game that I felt like I should have won already. So I start just using as many cards from the extra deck as possible, summon everything, bring back the Poplar, destroy the field spell, which destroys their field. I knew they'd get the Garunix back, and I think might as well pop it, because even if they bring out the Kirin from the graveyard here, I still have Ash Blossom, so I felt safe. And then we summon the Hita here. I'm trying to take a monster from their graveyard. I'm worried about Nibiru, but they actually have the Psyframe Gear Gamma. And then I'm still thinking about Nibiru. I'm so locked into it that I forgot that even if I used Linkuriboh in the battle phase here to avoid a Nibiru summon and do that last 300 points of damage, they still have the Gamma and they can just use it again. They drew another Kirin here, so that could be disastrous, and I was really worried about Princess's effect, so I immediately went to destroy it. So I try to get rid of Promethean Princess as soon as possible before it can use its effect. Luckily, they don't have anything left in the hand, so they have to pop the Princess, which accomplishes what I wanted anyway, except I don't bring my Princess back. And they've broken through a lot of the board and are able to end on Typhon, and so they put Hita back to the extra deck, but that's okay because we can bring it back from the extra deck on this turn, because we have Diabellstar, which is the best starter in the deck, and then we get Kashtira Birth, which is a great discard for Jet Synchron, so I'm so glad I'm playing that Jet Synchron there. And they use the Crosshair Designator on the Diabellstar, stuff that you can only see in this mirror. And then I bring back the Flame Bridge, and even though I can't use its effect because Typhon negates monster effects that are 3,000 or more, at least prevents them from being used on field, I'm able to end the game. Wow, that was awesome. So those were some of the better games that I had in the Shadow Duelist tournament with this Snake Eyes build, and I really enjoyed playing it even in a meta filled with Fire King variants of this Snake Eyes deck. So, if you want to see more deck profiles like this, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hopefully all these Snake Eyes cards will be banned soon, so we won't have to worry about them anymore. But until then, I'll catch you in the next video.